Welcome to the Space podcast series, Stories of Change. This is an AI-narrated podcast series inspired by authentic curriculum redesign cases. In each episode, we explore how educators are rethinking teaching and learning to build stronger connections between universities, students, and society.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, and today we're exploring a curriculum redesign journey that rethinks one of the most traditional parts of higher education, the final thesis. I'll be speaking with one of the redesign case holders about how thesis work began moving beyond the boundaries of the university and towards collaboration with community organizations, creating new possibilities for socially connected research while also raising important questions about supervision, academic standards, and feasibility. When people think about a thesis, they often imagine something quite individual, one student working independently with one supervisor over a long period of time. What first made your team question that traditional model?
Yes, that traditional image was very much our starting point. A thesis is often seen as a solitary academic journey, focused mainly on demonstrating research competence within the university context. But we began asking ourselves whether thesis work could also respond more directly to societal needs and whether students could carry out academically rigorous research in collaboration with community organizations.
So the idea wasn't to replace academic research, but to connect it more meaningfully with society.
Exactly. Maintaining academic quality remained essential throughout the redesign. The goal was never to lower standards, but rather to broaden the relevance and impact of student research. We explored how bachelor's and master's theses could be developed together with non-profit organizations facing real challenges that could genuinely benefit from in-depth research.
That sounds promising, but I imagine it also introduced a great deal of complexity quite quickly.
Yes, definitely. And that's why the redesign has remained intentionally exploratory and relatively small scale for now. Only a limited number of students have been involved so far because we wanted to understand carefully what this type of collaboration actually requires before attempting to expand it further.
What kinds of questions or tensions started to emerge once the redesign began?
There were many. One of the biggest questions was how to align the needs of community organizations with academically appropriate research questions. At the same time, we had to think carefully about supervision, assessment, and how to maintain academic rigor when thesis work also carries strong societal relevance.
And because a thesis is such a significant part of a degree program, I imagine those questions carry quite a lot of weight.
Absolutely. A thesis isn't simply another assignment. It's closely tied to graduation and academic credibility. That meant the redesign required very clear frameworks, strong communication, and shared expectations between students, supervisors, and partner organizations.
Were there also concerns around feasibility and sustainability?
Yes, very much so. Community partner organizations need sufficient time and capacity to engage meaningfully in these collaborations, and that can't always be taken for granted. Supervision workload also became an important issue, especially because these projects often require additional coordination and dialogue beyond traditional thesis supervision. And then there's the question of scale. What works well for a small number of students may not automatically work for larger groups.
Despite those uncertainties, what convinced you that this redesign was worth continuing?
The potential benefits became very clear quite quickly. Students working on socially relevant research often showed higher levels of motivation and engagement because their work felt meaningful beyond academic assessment. And for community organizations, the collaboration created access to research and analytical work that they might otherwise not have the resources to undertake.
So, in some ways, the thesis itself begins to take on a different role.
Yes, exactly. The thesis becomes not only a demonstration of academic competence, but also a bridge between the university and society. It encourages students to see research as something that can contribute to real communities and real social questions.
What helped move the redesign process forward, especially given all the uncertainties involved?
One important factor was starting small and allowing room for experimentation before formalizing the process too quickly. Creating space for dialogue among staff was also essential, particularly around questions of standards, supervision, and assessment. and peer exchange within the co-learning program provided reassurance and practical insight from colleagues working through similar challenges.
And finally, looking back on the journey so far, what do you feel has been the most important lesson from this redesign process?
Probably that some of the most meaningful innovations happen at the edges of existing structures rather than through completely new systems. And also that connecting education with society doesn't always require creating entirely new courses. Sometimes it begins by rethinking the purpose and potential of the practices we already consider traditional.
A thoughtful reminder that even the most individual forms of academic work can carry wider social meaning when learning and research become genuinely connected to the communities around us.
This story is based on real experiences from curriculum redesign projects run under the Erasmus Plus Space Project. More information about the cases and the Space Project can be found on the website www.community-engagement.eu.